Welcome to the Fantasy Thinker. I'm Jared. And once again, it is time to do a big batch of reviews. I only have 6 today, which is fortunately less than last time, where I fell behind on all my reviews and all the books I've read. And I had decided to just throw them all in one big one because that's what you guys voted for last time. And so that's what I'm going to do this time as well to try to catch up before the end of the year. All right. So, first up, we have Stand on Zanzibar. That This book was part of the Sci-Fi Masterworks read along that we're doing on pagejoin.com, and so this was by John Brunner, and this book did not sit well with me. Go figure, So the the premise behind this book is that it takes place in this kind of near future 2000 something or whatever, is written in like 1968 or something, and uh the world is full of overpopulation and full of um just trying to deal with that situation. It has a little bit of future tech, but not really, doesn't really get too much into that part of science fiction. Um, it's more of a social science fiction, I guess you could say, as he explores the ramifications of overpopulation and how the world would look with that in place. And it would, he looks at how it be society be separated into different stratas, and much more so than what we're used to. It's eerily prescient in that sense. So he definitely knows his sociology. He bases a lot of it upon some of the research at the time in the 60s, which is outdated. So you got to take that into context. What I didn't like about the novel was the structure. The structure is strange. It puts it into this three different subsections, and he randomly, well, seemingly randomly, I wouldn't say it's, I think it's on purpose, but it seemingly randomly throws these different sections out with all these different characters, and you really have a hard time keeping track of who's who and how the sections interact, and I really didn't get a good sense of who the main protagonists were in this book till like 300 pages in almost. I mean, you can kind of guess, but you really didn't get a good handle on that. And it was just so chaotic the way he threw it together. And I'm sure that if you went back and you broke the sections down and you looked at them closely and you took it all apart and even put the different sections in order of how they relate to each other, the the book would make a ton of sense and would probably be and probably is quite the masterpiece of construction once broken down and put together in that manner. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to read a good sci-fi story, and I got a clunky, scattered um, collection of um, sociological over essays on overpopulation, and it just didn't work for me. The final 150 pages of the book or so were actually quite interesting. It kind of veered into a spy fiction territory where someone's trying to infiltrate and report on what one country is doing in order to help try to solve this overpopulation problem. And so, so that was pretty interesting. And so I'll give him credit for the ending. Anyways, it did end in a decent fashion, and so that that's where I stand on Zanzibar. All right, next up. Oh, and by the way, all these reviews are off the cuff. I have not scripted these ones at all, so they'll be a little bit more chaotic than my normal reviews. All right, we have Houses of the Unholy, yeah, by Ed Brubaker, and Sean Phillips. This is a standalone graphic novel that came out this year. It's brand new, and once again, I know I go on and on about Sean Phillips' artwork, um, and but it's well deserved to go on and on about it because man, does he know how to capture the time period. He knows how to capture the 80s very well. And so this book, Houses of the Unholy, takes place during the 1980s. It takes place during the Satanic Panic era. For those of you not familiar with that, there was a big push by your holy rollers of the time and during the 80s uh, to root out anything that could be considered uh, something of satanic influence on children. Your biggest offenders of such things were of course music, heavy metal music in particular. Your your Judas Priests and your Iron Maidens and your King Diamonds and other bands like that were considered satanic influences on children. But also there was Dungeons and Dragons, which was a big satanic influence. It had spells and rituals and people turning into werewolves and stuff. So all that stuff was part of that thing. But there was also the rumors of satanic cults kidnapping children and bringing them in either raising them to be, a member of a satanic cult like that, or sacrificing them or something very horrible like that. So, of course, all this was conjecture and rumor at the time, and it was overblown, and most of it was wildly inaccurate and disproved. Anyway, Brubaker takes that fear, that stuff that was going on back then in the 80s, and he puts it into a great story in Houses of the Unholy. It's really, he captures the time period so well, and he also captures the feeling of what is going on back there, but the story is also told later than the 80s, so he also catches that remembrance of things happening and how people can remember things differently than what actually happened, which is key into getting misinformation about what was going on. And so I really like what he did with this time period. And I thought, once again, these guys put together a great story that was a lot of fun. It's a standalone one shot type of deal, and what can I say? These guys are the best comic creators there are out there, and you really can't go wrong with them. Next up, we have A Lion's Pride by P.L. Stuart. I was so happy to finish this one. This was a great time. It's the fourth book in the Drowned Kingdom saga, and it continues on with the story of the great king Othron. And once again, it's told in the first person. It's hard to, really delve into this one without giving stuff away for the first three books, but as it always is in a great long series like this. But I am so happy to be caught up in PL's story here, so that I can be ready for when book 5 comes out next year, and I'm really looking forward to that because this series has been really great. It's been really a breath of fresh air. This is my self-published read of the month here, so that I finished up, and so I gotta say I'm really enjoying Arthur's story. PL does Stuart, he does mix things up a little bit when he puts a couple of other viewpoints in there. I think at the beginning and the end, um, but he does it so stylishly and he meshes it very well. Once again, Authorin is our main uh, viewpoint. He's not the most trustworthy narrator. He's not the most likable narrator. He doesn't always he doesn't always he's quite selfish, and he doesn't always seem to have everybody's interest at heart. He has his own interest at heart, and you got to take that in consideration as you're reading along. But you really get to like the character through the fact that he's learning his own foibles and his own faults, and you want him to grow. You want him to be better. He wants to be better, but he's not always successful. But you want him to be better, and so um, once again, there's a lot of action in here, a lot of events happening. Stuart really keeps us on our toes as far as trying to figure out what's going to happen to this guy next and what the events of this continent is going to bring us. Um, what kind of chaos is going to come about due to the magic on this world, and what's as we start to figure out the magic in this continent, because we're figuring it out as Othran is figuring it all out, and so it's really eventful in that manner, and I'm really enjoying the heck out of it. I can't wait for the fifth book. It's out, I think he said April, uh, so I'm going to be so glad to be in um, at the beginning when it's new, instead of catching up, So, anyways, that is A Lion's Pride by P.L. Stewart. If you've read any of the earlier books, you're going to be thoroughly entertained still with this latest entry. And next we have from the collection of The Devil Delivered and Other Tales, I finished off the third novella in here called Fishin' with Grandma Matchie. And I had a full discussion on this novella um, with Vasha, my friend, and so you can check out that discussion once you've read the story because it's full spoiler discussion. But for the sake of reviewing it here, Fishing with Grandma Matchie was a really fun, light story about a child who gets in trouble at school and starts telling stories about why he acts the way he does in school. But he ends up telling this story about his grandmother, Matchie, who he goes fishing with, but also goes on all these other wacky and wild adventures with. And it turns out to be a big mythology that he creates in order to explain his actions, and it's this big wonderful mythology, and it's really just in pure Erikson fashion. It's really just so well done, and it's a blast to read. It's fun. Um, we had a great time talking about it, so go check out the discussion once again once you've read the story. And so he really delves into there's a lot of Native American Indian history in the story that's mixed in with a few modern things that creates this strange mythology that really um, uh, goes along with a 9-year-old's imagination. And as this 9-year-old puts together all the things that like adults tell you and makes them into something that a boy can grasp a hold of in order to really put these elements together, in that fashion that a young kid does. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to make sense to a child who doesn't really get the real world, or even get history, or even get um, religion, or anything like that. He's puts it all together in his own way to make it so that it makes sense for him, and it's just so beautifully done and meshed together. And Erikson stays in that style of that 9-year-old while still being, um, you know, writing like Erikson. Erikson, of course, Stephen Erikson is the author of the Malazan Book of the Fallen. So anyone who's familiar with that, um, you will get something quite different out of Fishin' with Grandma Matchie. And it's amusing as hell, and it's a lot of fun. So check it out. All right, and next we have The Drowned World by J.G. Ballard. This is also part of the Sci-Fi Masterworks read along on pagechewing.com. And this was this month's read along. We're going to have a discussion about this coming up this weekend. And so stay tuned for that. It'll be a full spoiler discussion of this book. But for now, this book for me was kind of mediocre, enjoyment wise. It was very well done, very well written. J.G. Ballard has a way with words, and he knows how to use them. And his prose was very enjoyable sometimes. He had some great descriptions of a future planet that was overtaken by environmental catastrophe. Seems to be a theme with that, right? Nowadays. So that's very, you know, forward looking on his part, because I think this was once again written in the 60s. And so that world that he describes, he does so in fantastic fashion. So the setting is incredible. What I didn't really grasp onto was I really didn't care about the characters at all. This was definitely an idea book first. The characters were kind of secondary. I mean, the main antagonist, his name was Strange Man. Strange Man. I mean, so he, there really wasn't much to the characters in here, and I really didn't get a good sense of their motivations at all. I was like, why are they doing the things they're doing? They didn't really, it, it really didn't come through in the telling of the novel, and you think that the antagonist, Strange Man, was after resources, but I'm not quite 100% sure. And so there was some science fiction thrown in there about trying to restore former cities, so that they can be used again. And I won't tell you which one, because that would give away some of the surprise. But um, the but like I said, the motivations of the characters. But I still enjoyed the book. It was short enough. It was only 200 pages, and it was it was very descriptive. It was descriptive enough that I enjoyed the prose, and I enjoyed how he described some of the things. He gets into some kind of like this theory of de-evolution for some of the creatures that are now popping up, crocodiles and what have you, and how this world is like kind of wants to return to like the Triassic period or Jurassic period or what have you. But um, so that was some kind of far-fetched stuff, but it was cool. And like I said, well written, descriptive, but character work, a little lacking. Anyways, half decent read from J.G. Ballard, Drowned World. That's a one of the Sci-Fi Masterworks collections, and quick, short, and to the point, very to the point. So he didn't. It didn't like meander. It didn't drag at all, or anything like that. So it was enjoyable for that aspect of it. And so There you go. The Drowned World by J.G. Ballard. And for our final book of the day today, we are going to be doing a little recap of Parable of the Sower. That's right. By Octavia Butler. And what I mean by recap is early last year, I did 2023. I did a review on the graphic novel Parable of the Sower adaptation. Um, and so I already sung the praises of this story through the graphic novel, but as part of a read along for the podcast Speculative Speculations, the Parable of the Sower came up to read along with those guys, and so I was like, all right. So I read the actual prose novel, and I was blown away once again. This is a great novel. It is really well done. Butler is a fantastic writer. The story takes place in the near future, actually 2024. This was written back in 1993. So uh, it was kind of appropriate that I was reading this right now. Takes place in 2024. It moves along a few years, so it moves along up to like 2029, I think, maybe. All right, but anyways, um, this is the story of a society, basically the beginning of a society starting to collapse, and some of the society corporations are kind of moving in to take the place of a lack of government in some cases, and it's quite harrowing story about this one girl's journey um, in through this landscape that um, Butler gives us, and it's her name is Lauren, and so she tells this story in first person, and so there's tons of commentary about, of course, religion because it is a parable. She's attempting to understand um, her viewpoint of what God means and what religion means, and how to use that to better her personal society, her place in it, and everyone who she's involved with. And so as the story moves along, we get these little parables that sometimes are called poetry by other people. But she starts to put them together, and she starts to put together things to really uh, mesh this into a viable um, sort of religion that she's creating, and and it's great because she doesn't know if it's gonna work. You don't know if it's going to work as the reader, but you go along with this journey that she's on, and it's just it's uh it's heartbreaking at times, and it's really just beautifully put together. Uh, Once again, I can't recommend this book enough. It really is a great novel. I can't wait to get to the next one. It's a duology. The next one is the Parable of the Talents, and so I can't wait to get to that one. And the graphic novel for that one's not out yet, so I can't read that. But go ahead and pick either one of these up. The graphic novel's a great adaptation. It's done very well, as you know, as I did a review on that last year. So I just wanted to recap Parable of the Sower, Octavia Butler. Go ahead and pick it up. It is great. And with that said, I think that gets me through all my um, undone reviews that I had to catch up on. So thank you once again if you made it this far. Thank you for watching. And I hope you get something out of these short reviews that I did off the cuff, unscripted. So I hope you get something out of them. And yeah, as always, be good to each other. And thank you.